Hello again, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for this Sunday's edition of Alaska Weather, 21st day of February 2021. And I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. Up first, we've got a blizzard warning out for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast there, Barter Island, Kaktovik, until 9 p.m. this evening. Winds gusting to about 50 miles an hour at Barter Island, and anywhere from 30 to 45 miles an hour, Dead Horse Prudhoe Bay area. And over that way, there's a winter weather advisory out until 9 p.m. for that stretch of the coastline. Blizzard warning for the Barter Island, Kaktovik area. Both end at 9 p.m. this evening as winds come down and conditions improve. Otherwise, there's a winter weather advisory there for the northwest coast. Kivalina, that's sitting just a little warmer than 40 degrees below zero this afternoon with snow and haze, and winter weather advisory northern Seward Peninsula as well as the central Seward Peninsula, and that's in effect until 6 p.m. this evening. So about to end the next couple hours there from recording time here. Blowing snow will taper off and conditions will improve, but a wind chill advisory stays out until noon Monday for St. Lawrence Island and the Bering Strait coast, until noon tomorrow for wind chills to 45 degrees below zero. And then down greater Juneau area, winter weather advisory for tonight until about 11 a.m. tomorrow for snow, looking at 2 to 7 inches of snow there for the greater Juneau area, with the heaviest amounts actually in the Mendenhall Valley. And then farther to the south, winter weather advisories for the southern panhandle for snow and blowing snow, and 2 to 5 inches of accumulation total tonight, again overnight tonight. And that's looking for Craigcloak, Prince of Wales Island, and over toward Ketchikan-Nanette and those areas, Shelter Cove. And moving on to satellite imagery, you can see cold air continues to pour southward through the Bering Strait from the Arctic there into the Bering Sea. Picks up a lot of moisture once it gets out over the open water. Actually, even over the ice, there's surges of moisture coming through the Bering Strait there, and mostly in the form of clouds, maybe some light flurries along the Yukon Delta coast, St. Lawrence Island area. And also for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, surges of moisture with a big polar vortex just west of Banks Island that continues to circulate southward. Areas of light snow and clouds, and a little bit of a pickup in the winds there, like it's going on today with that system kicking the winds up. More of a wind than snow producer, but with the light snow and the cold temperatures, of course, that any blowing snow will probably reduce visibilities to less than a quarter mile. Otherwise, kind of a more convective pattern there around Kodiak Island, with about 1/10 of an inch of precipitation today at AKwx there, and showers around Kodiak Island, mostly missing the state airport there. And then some clearing along and south of the Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians. Generally a break for the Pribilofs, just clouds and some sun breaks, Adak and Atka, but now the cirrus spreading into Atka with the next system there. Thickening, lowering clouds with moisture pushing in precipitation into Shemya and Attu. Otherwise, for the southeast coast, winds were pretty gusty with a system moving in earlier, southwest up to 63 miles an hour, Cape Decision for a peak wind gust. Heaviest precipitation, Hoonah picked up a little over an inch in the last 12 hours, and Gustavus had about 1/2 inch of rain and snow, both in mid to upper 30s for temperatures there. And just starting to get some ice pellets in Juneau, with temperature around 40 degrees here at the last hour. Otherwise, rolling this again, you can see the system pushing up to the western Aleutians, going to collide with the cold air coming southward there, and so it won't get too far to the north. And kind of a upper level trough, cold upper trough over western Alaska. That keeps the light snow to the east of the trough axis, Alaska Range into south central Alaska, pretty light, less than 1/2 inch most areas to trace amounts. And on the chart, Arctic high pressure, not all that strong, really just an area of lack of storminess and the presence of high pressure there over the interior. And a weak low in the Gulf, not much of a gradient associated with it when I mean weak. And got the windy, wet conditions over the Panhandle, and then that next front pushing into the western Aleutians. Tonight spreads warmer temperatures, increase in the winds with the warm front into Adak and Atka, and eventually into Unmak Island, with some mixed precipitation toward morning. And trough, light snow, Alaska Peninsula, southeast Bering Sea, and mostly clear and cold over the interior, increasing north winds there as the gradient tightens along the south central Alaska, along the Alaska Range. And we'll see tomorrow that tightens further. So pretty windy in south central Alaska through the mountain passes western Alaska Range area down through the, let's see, storm warnings out for the Barren Island, or for Kamishak Bay, storm warnings are out northwest 50 knots. And snow in the northern Panhandle, rain and snow showers down to the south, and rain moving into the eastern Aleutians and Alaska Peninsula now, warming temperatures into the Pribilofs as the front tries to push northward, but cold high pressure in control of much of the interior except for the Arctic coast under the influence of polar low there to the north. And for Tuesday, less of that influence for the northern interior, or for the Arctic coast on Tuesday, with clearing and cold eastern northern interior, chance of snow southwest interior with warming temperatures, rain and snow showers on the decrease of the Panhandle, unsettled Bering Sea and the Aleutians. And Kodiak Island, lows tonight below zero Copper River Basin, about 30 below northern Kuskokwim Valley, 15 to below to 5 above south central Alaska, even down to 12 in Homer, 30s for the Panhandle. And highs tomorrow, well below, or lows tonight, highs tomorrow morning, 30 to 45 below for the northern interior, all the way out to the Arctic coast, a little milder there, but below zero, way below zero, all the way to the southwest coast, even northeast Bristol Bay, mid-teens for the Pribilofs. And highs tomorrow afternoon, single numbers, Copper River Basin, 10 to 15, south central Alaska. In the 30s, lower 40s for the Panhandle, near freezing for Kodiak Island, and below zero north and west of the Alaska Range of the Arctic coast, and mid-30s for the Pribilofs, near 40 for the central Aleutians, lower 40s Alaska Peninsula, near freezing Kodiak, 22 for your low Tuesday morning for Kodiak Island, and again, 5 above to 15 below Kenai Peninsula, Manaska-Susitna Valley, Anchorage area. Not so far below zero for the Copper River Basin, well below zero north of the Alaska Range there to the Arctic coast, and lower 30s for the Bering Sea. Highs Tuesday, single numbers, Copper River Basin, teens to near 20 south central Alaska, lower 40s some areas of the Panhandle, and edging above zero there for the greater Fairbanks area, but below zero on out to the Arctic coast.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
First line weather graphic Monday morning. IFR there from the extreme northern Koyukuk, Kobuk Valley area just south of the Brooks Range, and then on out across the north slope to the Arctic coast into the ocean. Front with some IFR out over the southwest Bering into the central Aleutian, spreading in toward Nikolsky. Marginal VFR spreading into Unalaska Island and just about to the Pribilofs. Marginal VFR, Alaska Peninsula, Kodiak Island, right up and across much of southern Alaska to the Alaska Range, some cases spilling over there in the eastern Alaska Range is getting north of the mountains and into the central northern Kuskokwim Valley. IFR, eastern North Gulf Coast, and marginal VFR for the central and western Panhandle. IFR over toward the border and down to the south. And for the afternoon, IFR pushes east and north there across the Bering Sea, becoming pretty widespread across eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, and then narrowing as you get to the Pribilofs and over the north central Bering. Big area VFR behind there into the central Aleutians. Big area VFR, northern Bering Sea, St. Lawrence Island to the northwest coast, western interior all the way down to Kodiak Island, and improving there Cook Inlet and the western Alaska Range. But some IFR lingering over the eastern Alaska Range, Nebezna, maybe to Mentasta Pass area, marginal for the eastern interior, from the Fairbanks area northward across the Yukon Flats, IFR, North Slope Arctic Coast, marginal for the Panhandle. Tuesday morning, IFR, they're part of the Brooks Range, mostly the eastern area there, eastern North Slope, VFR, central North Slope Arctic Coast, and then kind of a mixed condition farther to the west. IFR pushing inland along the southwest coast and across Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta to the Kuskokwim Mountains, Togiak Bay to about Dillingham, and then down across the Alaska Peninsula and Fox Islands. Marginal VFR, western Bering to about near Amchitka, from Amchitka to Adak, VFR right up to St. Paul and St. George. On Alaska and Nikolsky, IFR North Gulf Coast, VFR, South Central Alaska, Southeast Interior, but the Panhandle stays marginal, and then for the afternoon becomes VFR for the Panhandle. So some pretty good improvement there. Eastern Copper River Basin, north across the upper Tanana Valley, 40-mile country, Yukon Flats, Brooks Range, Central Eastern North Slope and Arctic Coast, all VFR, including the Northwest Coast, Northern Seward Peninsula. But IFR there from the southern Seward Peninsula down across the Yukon Kuskokwim Delta and then into northern Bristol Bay, southern Kuskokwim Valley, right up along the western Alaska Range, back west to the Pribilof, south to the Alaska Peninsula, especially the south side, on up to the southwest part of Kodiak Island. Marginal VFR into the central interior, down across south central Alaska, Madanuska-Susitna Valley, into Prince William Sound, and Panhandle VFR. And for the passes for tomorrow, Adigan, marginal VFR, possible IFR on the northern approach of both Adigan and Anatuvik, with Lake Clark and Merrill looking good, VFR tomorrow, and rainy VFR. Windy VFR, possible marginal VFR northern entrance, and Isabel, marginal VFR, becoming even worse as you head east there toward Mentasta. IFR looks like at times throughout the day tomorrow. And Tanita, marginal, improving as you head west into Susitna Valley. There'll be VFR, and then back to marginal for Portage, and Chilkoot and White, marginal VFR. Freezing levels 2,000 to 4,000 feet, east central Aleutians there, but at the surface still south of the Pribilofs and just along the south coast of the Alaska Peninsula across Sitkinak, Trinity Islands, up to the eastern North Gulf Coast, and then along the border of the Panhandle. And icing with a band in the Bering Sea, some possible areas, not too widespread, a considerable moderate rime icing with that, mixed icing over the western central Aleutians, and then mixed to rime icing there for the southeast coast, but not too serious. And looking at the jet stream, 95 knots, kind of some ridging there, pushing a little bit stronger jet, but not too strong, 85 to 100 knots there into the southeast Bering Sea, eastern Aleutians, coming across Kodiak, increases as you head south, otherwise not too bad at this elevation. 9,000 feet west-northwesterlies around the polar vortex there, west of Banks Islands, 40 to 45 knots into the northern interior, and 60 knots Alaska Peninsula. And at 3,000 feet with that front, a little stronger now, 40 to 55 knot winds coming across eastern Bering Sea, 55 knot westerlies south of the Aleutians. Turbulence, look with the building ridge over the southwest interior, mechanical turbulence of the pretty choppy, moderate variety there. Susitna Valley, Cook Inlet, lee side of the western Alaska Range to Fognak Island, Kamishak Bay, also for the eastern Aleutians. Alaska Peninsula, a little on the bumpy side there, considerable moderate. Otherwise, not too bad for much of the interior, and light to isolated moderate chop for the southern southeast coast. After the break, I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
We can't just put the fires out because we can't put them out. We've tried that now for a century, and it doesn't work. It just makes the next one worse.
You may see a place like this and think, total devastation. And it's not your fault for thinking that.
But that depiction is, as we've learned from countless experts over the last 2 weeks, not the whole story, and not how you should think about wildfires.
The truth is, there are lots of types of habitats out west, and fire affects them all in unique ways. So it's important to start thinking about the big picture with wildland fires. So let's first rewind. To help us understand what's going on out west, Rob and I started calling up the experts, and what we found was that the story of fire, particularly in the west, is complex. So to understand it, we planned a road trip.
Road trip time!
The goal of our road trip was to see as many forests as we could and meet experts around the region to help us understand the role fire plays out here. First destination was to find the forest burned by the now famous Great Fires of 1910. And at the heart of what is known as the Big Blow-Up, the logical first place to stop, the city of Wallace.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi. Good. Haley and I are in this cute town of Wallace, Idaho, which was completely destroyed by the 1910 fires. You can see how much damage this fire actually did. Let's send up the drone and see what the surroundings look like now. What we found was a small town surrounded by a dense forest, with every single tree just over 100 years old.
So everything we see behind us now, that's all new growth since 1910.
And to help us put these historic fires and the forests around Wallace in perspective, we met up with historian Diane Smith.
This is Wallace, and here are your fires.
All of this is the 1910 fires.
This is not that unusual. The fact is, it just was at a time in our development as a country. We noticed it, we paid attention to it, and we got the national attention for it.
Right. As it turns out, these fires helped reinforce the idea at the time that every fire needed to be suppressed at all costs. And this suppression for so long has led to new problems, namely thick forests full of fuel. But don't just take my word for it. Let me show you the difference.
Notice how different this place is than this one that has been thinned out quite heavily in the past, or like an area like this that's been burnt quite frequently.
In fact, both of these areas show how many forests would have looked in the past under regular burns. The dead and low-growing material gets consumed easily by fire, very much unlike this forest, which has had fire suppression for over 100 years and could lead to a high-intensity fire.
And all of this dry, dead material, that's problematic.
So we went looking for a big fire and just followed the smoke.
Oh gosh, a huge crown fire. I gotta get this.
These high-intensity fires aren't great because in many forests they kill all the trees over a large area, even in forests that used to be very resistant to frequent fires. And nobody knows that better than the people that work in this particular forest.
There's green coming back, and I guess I've gotten somewhat used to it, and I still have hope that the entire Sierra Nevadas won't look like this, that we can maybe get ahead of it. So the fires nowadays can move from the surface right into the tree canopies really easily, where in the past, fires would have kept trees pruned, they would have kept fuel densities low. And so now you end up with a lot more high severity fires in the West than had a fire regime kept under its historic recurrence. This to me is more a lesson of fire exclusion and keeping fire out of the system. If we're keeping it out of when it would burn with a beneficial effect, it will burn, and the probability of it burning at an unbeneficial state is higher.
So again, this is where it's complicated. We thought if only we could stop the fires, we'd win the fight. But the fires like the King Fire here show that stopping the fires only made it worse. Add that to the fact that we're living closer than ever to these wild lands. So to help us understand the wildland-urban interface, we met up with CAL FIRE. And as we were pulling up to this neighborhood, one of the residents quickly came out to tell us about the latest fire.
Yeah, our biggest fear is fire. It was very scary. I mean, everybody was honking and get out, and you know, there's a fire.
This is the risk across California. The response piece alone isn't going to solve this challenge if the homeowners aren't organized.
Because we're all in the same boat. We're one match away from everybody losing everything. It's a real fear.
Literally, we could have that fire spread up in here within a matter of seconds.
Wow.
California is going to have fires. We're not going to stop all the fires in California, so we have to have an infrastructure that's fire resistant. We need to work on policies that help us engage in active management of our forest. That's using prescribed fire as a tool. It's all the things in the toolbox. It's a combination of managing our forest and a combination of protecting our communities that are in it.
If it wasn't complicated enough, this made it very clear that you can't just let the fires burn whenever they start. The forests need to be managed to help mitigate the risk to us. But using fire seems to be one of the keys to making things safer, and knowing the science behind fire is always key to implementing good management.
Fire Sciences Lab, right over here.
So we made a stop at the Missoula Fire Lab to try to understand what we know about fire.
You see the flames at the very top and how they're sticking to the slope?
They really are. Everybody's laying down.
They're laying down. Well, that's flame attachment. Actually a very difficult thing to understand.
Here at the Fire Lab, the scientists study the basics of fire. Understanding the complexities here helps firefighters and forest managers in the field better predict and fight wildland fires.
Fires are inevitable. The only choices that we really have is what kind of fire to have and when do we want it. And that's it. Almost? Ready. You're ready. Jason's ready.
Mark's team is prepping to light a huge bed of precisely cut cardboard.
You're not going to be in any danger. So when the lights go out, don't move. Gasoline.
This is one of many experiments they'll run to understand the physics of fire, how it moves, how it spreads, and all of this measured by precise scientific instruments and high-speed cameras. tens of thousands of pieces of cardboard up in flames in mere seconds. The ongoing research will help us better understand fire with the ultimate goal that we can live better with it. But can we do that? There is one forest we knew of that seems to have figured out this coexistence with fire, a place where fires burn all summer, every summer. It's part of their way of life and a mentality we wanted to know about. And here we went out with our guides Frank Lake and Steve Valentine, who work with the local U.S. Forest Service and tribe to help keep a healthy forest.
This is perfect. The fire's basically come through and cleared out the understory, and all that's left are the trees.
Yeah, it's black and it's charred, and you just see a few of the earliest sprouts, but you come back in here a year, it's going to be alive again.
And to many, this may seem destroyed, but they view it differently here.
That fire's medicine, because it's not if it comes, it's when it comes. We need fire, and fire needs us.
You see, fire needs people to remind us how important fire is to the ecosystem. Frank and Steve's ancestors have been burning this forest for millennia. It's now part of what makes the forest special. They just want to make sure that it's not forgotten.
Basically, what you leave behind is what's important.
When they say this is your foods and your medicines, your sacred places, your springs, your water, that's essential, that's who we are as people. We have to learn to live with fire. We have to learn to respect fire. We have to maintain that security. That's why I do what I do.
Haley and I have learned a lot on our journey. We've learned that fire is complicated, and it's not as black and white as we make it out to be, and it is an integral part of our forests. They've had fire running through them for thousands of years, and they will continue to have fire in them in the future. And we can't always put the fires out. We have to decide what kind of fires to live with, and that is why we need to work with these fire crews from around the country. We also need a public who understands the importance of fire on the landscape. A healthy forest, you see, is a forest that lives with fire.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at the sea ice analysis for Sunday. Not much different from yesterday. It looks a little raggedy, a little more ragged along the outer ice edge, the heavier ice there. St. Matthew Island, just south either side of the island there, on back to south of Cape Newenham. Then more of a variable ice condition, Bristol Bay, heaviest stuff in the northeastern bay there. Not much change for Cook Inlet down to Kamishak Bay, or the northern Bering Sea to the Bering Strait for that matter. Coastal water forecast, small cries advisories all along the coast for west winds, 30 knots, except the eastern North Gulf coast will be westerly at 25 knots with 15-foot seas, otherwise around 18 feet for the remainder of the coast. Inside waters, central and northern areas, south winds 20 knots, 4-foot seas, Clarence Strait southeast 20 with 8-foot seas, so small craft advisories for that zone. And then for Tuesday, Clarence Strait southeast 24-foot seas, central and northern inside waters mostly south at 20 knots with seas around 4 feet. Small craft advisories for the entire coastline again. South winds 25 knots, seas just under 20 feet and just under 15 feet along the north coast. And heading west, Prince William Sound. Northwest 30 knots, 6-foot seas, and westerlies 30 knots, Middleton Island zone with 14-foot seas, gale warnings. Western North Gulf Coast and the Barren Islands. In the case of the Barren Islands, west 40 knots with 15-foot seas, and then storm warnings for Kamishak Bay. West winds sustained 50 knots, 22-foot seas, southern Cook Inlet. Small craft advisories, northwest 30 knots, 10-foot seas, much lighter north of the Forelands there with a northwest breeze at 10. And for Tuesday, north of the Forelands, northern Cook Inlet, small craft brisk wind advisory, north 25 knots, 30 knot northeast winds for southern Cook Inlet, and easterlies now at 30 knots for Kamishak Bay. Got good gales there for the Barren Islands and the North Gulf Coast, all out of the southeast at 40 knots with seas running 8 to 11 feet, and small craft advisories, Prince William Sound, northeasterlies at 25 knots, 6-foot seas. Bristol Bay, northeast at 20 with seas at 5 feet. Gale warnings, Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula. South, 35 knots. Small craft advisories from Cape Sarachev all the way up to Sitkinak for 30-knot winds from the west-southwest. Seas around 15 feet. Gale warnings, minimum gales on the east side of Kodiak Island, and stronger gales, Shelikof Strait, with even storm force westerly gusts of 55 knots, especially early part of the day, diminishing in toward evening. And for Tuesday, East side of Kodiak all the way down to Castle Cape, south 30 knots. Southeast 20 now for Shelikof Strait. Alaska Peninsula southwest winds at 30 knots. Southeast 20 for Bristol Bay. Fox Islands, on Alaska Island, we've got gale warnings, south to southwest, 35 knots, 10 to 17 foot seas. And on Alaska, Runmack Island, south, 30 to 35 knots, small craft advisories 8 AKwx, south-southwest, 25. And then from Amchitka all the way to Shimianatu and Kiska, south at 30, with seas running 15 to 18 feet. Small craft advisories continue for the western Aleutians. A little bit lighter out there in the western area, more westerly at 25 knots from Shimia to Kiska. Amchitka Island, southwest 30. Same thing for 8 AKwx, southwest at 30 knots with seas running 9 to 19 feet. On Unmak Island, south 30 knots. On Alaska Island, south to southwest 25 to 30 knots. Southwest coast, easterlies 25 knots tomorrow. Pribilof south 30, St. Matthew Island east at 30, down to 15 knots for St. Lawrence Island, and light and variable to no wind at all for Norton Sound. And then those will pick up to brisk wind advisory levels for Norton Sound and the St. Lawrence Island area, east-northeast 25 knots, north 25, St. Matthew Island, south 30 there, south of Nunivak Island for the southwest coast, 15 knots for the Pribilofs, and east at 20 for the Yukon Delta coast. Central and east side of the Arctic coast, northeast 15, except over toward Demarcation Point, the eastern zone there, west at 20, west 20 on the western North Gulf Coast, all the way down to Wales. And then for Tuesday, northeast 15 from Wales to Cape Thompson, and then southwest 15, western Arctic coast, 10 to 20 knots from the west for the central and east side. And for tonight, weak low up there, all combined, actually associated with the big polar vortex west of Banks Island, circulating in surges of light snow, keeping it cold, occasionally windy, and northern panhandle snow mixture for the remainder of the southeast coast, rain and snow, and milder temperatures pushing into the central and then eastern Aleutians. For tomorrow, that continues north and eastward, bringing rain into the Alaska Peninsula and a mix into the Pribilofs. High pressure, clearer and colder. Windier, south central Alaska into the central interior, periods of snow, north slope Arctic coast, northern panhandle. And for Tuesday, more of a showery condition, diminishing there for the panhandles. High pressure tries to build in, area snow over the southwest interior, and unsettled over the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. Thank you for joining us.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.